Everybody, my name is Matita. Welcome to the Matita on the Couch. As you know, this Matita on the Couch I started a while back, around about 2018. So the intention is to have a conversation with leaders in their spheres of expertise. So today I have with me here three bright individuals from the aviation sector that I'll quickly introduce to you now. As I say, you need ladies first, to introduce the rose amongst the thorns. I would like to welcome Kim James. Kim spent over 20 years in the investment banking industry in South Africa, in the UK, in Hong Kong, and the UAE, and is now fortunate enough to be using a global experience gained in a highly regulated and structured industry in aviation back in South Africa. But then also, she's a director of the South African Civil Aviation Certified Drone Operator, UAV Aerial Works, and the company's drone security brand, that is Drone Guards. And I think with her experience, we're going to learn a lot from what she's gained. She gained from international traveling. And then also we have Sam Twana as well, MD and founder of Into Aviation Solutions. I guess later on, in other engagements, I will tell you more about Sam. I think we from the same area, somewhere far in the Eastern Free State, but that's not the topic today. He's a drone consultancy, training and skills development service provider in the drone industry. And then Sam has over a decade of aviation experience from defense, regulator and navigation services perspective. His passion in the drone industry and specifically his work in drone integration sets him apart as an aviation consultant. And the last one is Keith Maleho. He's a Pearl Inspector or Testing Standard Officer, Air Traffic Services at the South African Civil Aviation, and then also South African Civil Aviation ARPA's Interdepartmental Technical Work Group Secretariat. He's studied computer science or computer systems engineering, and he's a qualified submariner that he did in 2013. He also joined the aviation, worked as an air traffic controller for ATNS in 2015, worked as an approach terminal radar and procedural controller at East London. Also, he was an OIC, that is officer in charge. And as we speak now, he's been accepted as a master's in aviation management student with Griffith University. Lady and gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Matita.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. I want to start here. If you look at what has been happening in the aviation industry, there's been a recent activity in the drone industry. Have you ever wondered what the skies will look like in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years time? Now, imagine going out onto your balcony, you're sitting nicely on a beautiful day and seeing drones buzzing around. They may be delivering food, products to people's doors, hovering in backyards for family enjoyment, or flying over highways to monitor traffic. In the United States, they were expecting around about 873,000 unmanned aircraft systems, sometimes known as drones. Recently, if you're following the aviation sector, Airbus has announced plans for a new city Airbus. the fully electric vehicle equipped with fixed wings, a V-shaped tail, and 8 electrically powered propellers as part of its unique designed distributed population propulsion system. So I'm not an expert in this. So I've got questions for you guys, and I think I will start with you, Keith. So in your understanding, in your own words, can you define what is UTM?
All right. Thank you very much, Matita. I thought you were going to start with the rose. Oh, was I the rose?
The rose.
And I'm glad you didn't go into our stories when we were in the UK. Hey, Matita.
Oh yes. No, that's something else. That one, yeah.
100%. Yeah. To me, UTM really is something really special and very close to my heart. Um, like it says, unmanned traffic management. So how I view it, I see it as a coming order, something that's going to deliver order, a parallel system to an ATM. I know I've had many encounters where we actually argue and say, where do I find the common lines between an ATM and a UTM? First of all, you have to ask yourself, why do we have an ATM? And then you have all the answers to why a UTM, and then you can define it in your own way, right? At the moment, no one can really define a UTM. Even at ICAO standards, it's not globally accepted. So it is looked at as a domestic product. And a UTM can vary from state to state, from person to person, right? And to me, that's it. A UTM is an ATM, but a ATM for drones. It has lots of capabilities and can actually grow the industry furthermore. It can actually outperform an ATM, and that's just the stark reality of it. And I don't know if I won't stop, if I was to actually define UTM, since it's a very close topic to my heart. So in a nutshell, a UTM to me is a parallel system to an ATM with much more capabilities and opportunities for everybody to actually get involved into the aviation system as a whole. Thanks.
Okay. And I mean, there's a follow-up, Sam, in your own understanding, how will you also define UTM?
All right. Thanks for that, Matita. I'll really go back to the basics. Right. When you talk about a UTM, and as the abbreviation itself, it's an unmanned aircraft traffic management system. So what we're talking about here is we need to find means and ways to be able for drones to fly from point A to point B in a very effective manner and in an expeditious manner as well. So the question is, how do you achieve that? Now, for you to achieve that, there must be a system in place, to make sure that all stakeholders, number one, they are able to communicate when necessary. Otherwise, there's access to data, whether that would be from air traffic controller point of view, or that whether that would be from civil aviation point of view. But however, the basis of this system is, if I need to fly my drone from, if I take an example with, if I'm a pizza owner shop, and we are able to deliver pizza using drones. Now the question is, how do I effectively, being able to access, number one, the airspace, and be able to, while I'm sitting at my shop, be able to load pizza in my drone and fly the shortest possible route from my shop to where my client is. So that's in a nutshell. And when you're looking at the basics, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about routes in a way, in a space, for us to fly drones from one point to the next. So in a basic form or shape, that's how I would describe what the UTM is.
Okay. Thank you. Kim, seeing that you've traveled the world, in your opinion, what are the major challenges holding the implementation of UTM back here in South Africa?
So Matita, thanks for the question. Look, I think let me preface my answer with something that I stumbled upon yesterday. I stumbled upon an article that was written by someone in the US in 2018 about the challenges of implementing UTM. So I reached out to him and I said, what's your follow-up from 2018? And he was like, nothing, it's still the same. And so what I would say, and I am very protective of South Africa, oftentimes we beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that I don't think there's anything specific holding South Africa back. It might be in a different shape or form, but there are challenges all over the world. I don't think that I'm aware of, Matita, there's a country in the world that's of significant size that says we've done it, we can share best practice, and then we as South Africa, for example, would be sitting here going, we are so behind because we can't do this, this, and that. So that's kind of my first statement, that I don't think we're particularly behind compared to other countries, but I do believe, and Keith and Sam know I have commented on this before, where I do believe that it's not an easy problem to solve, but in South Africa, we have to have the political will, the political skill, and the funding. Because any problem can be solved if those three things exist. And I don't know what order they have to come in.
Yeah.
But that's my view.
Okay. So well, I think you've answered that question. That will be my follow-up question. You actually said in South Africa we are far behind, and you mentioned three things that needs to be in place. Do you think we are capable of doing that?
Of course, I have to say yes. I think there are extremely clever people around. I think there is enough experience and will in different pockets of the industry. But again, I think to Keith's point earlier, you know, there are different role players, and I think it's just a case of, you know, is it part of UTM, is it part of ATM? Is it an extension of ATM? Will it sit with a private provider with links into all the players? And I think that those things have to be sorted out first around who's going to own it. And I'm sure we'll get to that in a second, but there are so many moving parts that you kind of have to agree first who the role players are, who the owners are going to be. And for those two that I've just mentioned, you know, what are those moving parts?
Okay.
But I think it's solvable for sure. There are lots of clever people in this industry who can solve this.
Okay, brilliant. And that brings me to my next question to you, Keith. From the regulatory perspective, what are the implications of introducing UTM?
Look, from a regulatory perspective, first of all, we have to then go back on how actually a regulation is introduced into the system. First of all, you then propose whoever might want to then bring a new regulation. You propose it on a sitting called CACOM, Civil Aviation Regulations Committee, and then you back it up, stating different reasons why you see this regulation is actually needed and necessary. And in that sitting, you have various stakeholders, your airlines, your operators, your stakeholders such as ATNS, AXA, and everything, and then from there on, then you'll take it up. So the implication that I see regulatory wise would be people actually being parallel with what a UTM is. I mean, we're still battling with people trying to understand what a drone is, right? And here you are trying to introduce a heavier subject to the whole system. Why do we need it? Why must we manage toys, right? First of all, that is your first implication. How do we then get over this actually implication? Sam will tell you we have then subsequently formed a liaison forum between civil aviation authority and the industry, where the industry representatives sit these meetings and we actually thresh each other out. We leave meetings as sworn enemies, but we meet so many times we can't afford to be enemies, you know. And matter of fact, that is where you actually start to discuss. You talk to the industry, you get an understanding of what the industry's appetite is. Obviously, the challenges that the industry is experiencing are far different from what me as an authority or regulator I sit with, right? I just see, because I'm pushing a mandate of safety and security, but then there are other implications such as costs. Who's going to own this? How is this going to be beneficial to all of us, you know? So I'd suggest that we then sit around and then we just talk about it and get to a point. We can find other solutions much more suitable to our context in our environment, and that is the approach, and then we can start building one. Remember, UTM has lots of plugs. Like I said, it has various and a very wide spectrum of opportunity. So we plug in and we start to define what a UTM is for ourselves as South Africa. And yeah, from a regulatory perspective, I think once that is done, then we can set the regulation and put it in motion. A regulation is not really a challenge as long as you address the people's concerns and everything. Thanks.
Okay. Now, Sam, as somebody who's been in the aviation industry for a while now, if given the task to implement UTM, where will you start?
Can I budge in? Sorry, Sam, before you please
okay,
say you're
go ahead, Keith.
Sam, I hope your first line is that you're gonna come and call Keith. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Matita. I must say that's a very, very difficult question. And this will go back to what Kim has indicated earlier. I mean, there's a cue or indication that you'll have that this is no easy task for any country. And to some extent, even with those countries with deep pockets. And as Kim said, correctly said so, you still have a lot of countries who are still battling with this concept. Yes, it might be a question of where are they in relation to a starting point. Yes, some might be in a little bit more advanced stage than others. And so what I'm basically saying here is this would be a difficult task. And exactly what Kim was saying, as a country, we should not really beat ourselves up by saying we are not taking this seriously or anything of that sort. However, we need to acknowledge that this is complicated and very challenging task. However, with that being said, that cannot be an excuse or should not be an excuse to sit down and say, you know what, it's hard, it's difficult, and we don't know what to do, and then we don't know where to start. We need to start somewhere. We need to be get moving. And the idea with moving as well is, if we happen to take a wrong direction, at least we'll find out soon enough that we took a wrong direction. But sitting down, not doing anything, we will never know whether this works or doesn't work. And why I'm saying that is the concept of UTM implementation, the complexity, there are three pillars. I always say there are three pillars when you look at drone industry. The first pillar would be the operations themselves. And with operations themselves is we're looking at the operators to say, in South Africa, where are drones used? what and how drones are used. So that is very important. And why I'm saying that is important is you may find that the drone usage in South Africa, if you compare to other countries, you know, they are very different, right? It's not the same. So your solution as a regulator, your solutions as a service, as an NSP service provider, you know, will be different, because whatever that you do must then align and respond to the needs for the industry needs. So that is important. That's very important. So those three pillars, you know, they're very important. Firstly, we need to understand the drone industry, and our drone industry is in South Africa about 6 years. I'm talking about the formal since the legislation was promulgated. So we have a pretty much good understanding. Now, what is important is we then need to define our concept. I call it, you know, a concept of traffic management, right?
Okay.
To say what are the popular, you know, what are the needs of this industry? I mean, are we looking at, you know, in relation to, are we looking at drones being able to fly 200 kilometers? How much of such need do we have in South Africa? Probably not so much. However, if you look at shorter distances, and shorter distances, I'm talking about 5 kilometers, probably 10 kilometers. That's where the bulk of the industry is. Now, when you then talk about the concept of traffic management, now you start to scope what are the needs of the industry based on, you know, what industry is looking at. And then once you have those two defined and you understand them very well, now there's another component which is a very crucial component, which is the regulator, right? And here we go into the basics. What's the number one function of the regulator or regulations in general is to enable, right? So once we have operators with a good understanding of what they need to do, what they want to do, and then you have defined the concept, you know, of traffic management, then you bring in regulations and to enable, you know, those operations from that point of view. I know at this stage I'm just giving, you know, a high level, you know, understanding or how order of, you know, events for us to get to a certain point.
Yes,
and then once we have defined those three pillars, then what we do is you test your concept, you test your theory and see where it works or it doesn't work. And how do you do that? You start by proof of concept. I mean, you pick one particular airport with enough sizable amount of traffic, and when I'm talking about manned and unmanned, and you implement, and you then start refining from that moment and implementing your ideas in a bigger scale. But the idea, the most important part is you need to start. And you need to start somewhere.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right. Let you on that starting part, and then I want to ask you, Kim, how will the implementation of UTM in South Africa benefit you as an operator?
Good question. Great question. So, look, to right, if we logistics, you know, kilometers, talking today, what would benefit us? You know, a perfect example, we had a security operation during lockdown when airspace was closed. It was literally on the center line of an approach path of an airport. And they were fine with that, with us applying for flexible use of airspace. But as soon as the airspace started opening again and they started realizing this is actually a permanent operation, they said no. So the immediate benefit for us would be that, you know, where we aren't paying landing fees and you know, the heavies who come in actually do, and it's a business for the airport, the immediate benefit would be that we could operate there because they'd be able to separate us from, you know, from incoming manned aircraft. So in the very first instance, you know, I think the restrictions in controlled airspace with beyond visual line of sight operations, all of that would be way easier, because assuming we would have a device, you know, you would register your flight, it would be registered, you know, at the nearest tower or literally on a central system, and you're good to go within parameters. So it would be commercially beneficial for us, and the ease of operations would exponentially improve.
Okay, all right. I think in parting shots, Keith, I'm gonna give you 45 seconds. So it looks like as a regulator, you've got a role to play. As a parting shots, what needs to happen from your side?
Matita, thank you very much for the parting shot. Look, I think Sam's summed it up pretty well, and that's it. We need to start studying, right? We need to start somewhere so that we can draw lessons from what's happening. And Kim came in with convenience. Remember, once Kim is as an operator has found convenience, then she can start contributing positively to the economy. And as a regulator, we need to start engaging further to understanding what is it that we actually trying to achieve with this whole thing. And I can go on forever, Matita. Thanks as a parting shot.
Okay, thanks. Sam, I mean, from the consultancy perspective, I mean, you get to work with everybody else around in the industry. What advice will you give them? What will you say in 30 seconds?
Quite short and straightforward. And I must say, the point that I'm about to make is, I think as a country, that's where we really come in short. And I'm saying this based on what I see in other countries, that in South Africa, we are not really working together. We are not collaborating. As industry, like Kim has certain expertise in what he does. And the regulator, they have their expertise in what they do. And unfortunately, if they both take their corners and they choose not to talk to each other, they choose not to collaborate, unfortunately, that information, that knowledge will then exist in separate silos. So we need to start moving together, and as a private sector and public and government, to start working together and understand that at the end of the day, we have one goal to achieve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We've run out of time. We will do this again. All the best, and thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. Thank you very much. All the best to you all.
Thanks, Matita.